All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. My name is Dave. This is the Radical Independent. Got our number one guest back on the show today. People are always asking me, when are you going to have Scott Ritter on again? And I thought today would be perfect timing to have Scott Ritter back on with the Zelensky visit and some of the things that have been happening recently. And I also want an update, Scott, of what's going on the ground in Ukraine, because I've been doing a lot of research and I really can't find a whole lot of information. But before we get to that, just want to hold this up. It's a little too late for a Christmas present, unless you do overnight shipping or something. But this is Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika and Arms Control and the End of the Soviet Union by Scott Ritter. It's his latest book, courtesy of Scott Ritter and Clarity Press. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm not really in the holiday spirit, but I'm trying. I'm really trying hard. Just a couple days away from Christmas, and the world is in chaos, and it's just kind of hard to focus. You know what I mean?
Yep, I know exactly what you mean.
So, Scott, like I said on the intro here, I've been trying to find some credible information, and I've even gone to some of the places that are a little better when it comes to reporting about the conditions on the ground in Ukraine. We know that Russia has stepped up their efforts over in Ukraine, trying to maybe speed things up a little bit. I think they were trying to be more diplomatic in their approach for a long time, and NATO continues to just kind of embrace this endless war scenario. And we had Zelensky show up, and he's getting, I think, another 45 billion. At least that's what was promised. He probably will get more. I know we've got not troops on the ground, but we've got logistics on the ground over there that are supposedly doing some of the things that you used to do, which is inspect these weapons to see, where they're going and how they're being allocated and so forth. Can you give us an update on the conditions on the ground in Ukraine?
Well, first of all, I'll preface it by the reality that besides fighting a cold, I'm sitting behind a desk thousands of miles removed from the front line.
Right.
So I don't have any firsthand knowledge or information. Anything I provide is from the benefit of a long distance, review.
Right.
But we are in the final stages of what I've been calling the stabilization period, following the dramatic Ukrainian offenses of September, their seizure of or recapturing of the territory in Kharkov, the occupation of the Kherson bridgehead, and the mobilization of 300,000 reservists by Russia. These things take time, and everybody's expecting instant results. We live in a 24-hour news cycle, and everybody wants an instant result. What, you mobilized 300,000? Why haven't you won the war today? Well, as President Putin made it clear just the other day, 150,000 of those mobilized have arrived at the front, but 150,000 are still finalizing their training. The people that arrived at the front are the troops that are required to stabilize the front lines, to build up sectors to full strength, to finalize the installation of hardened defenses through depth. It's important. It's just like in firefighting. Now, before you attack a fire, in wildland firefighting, you have to secure your flank. You have to have a position from which you operate from that you don't move from. This is it, boom, and then you pivot, etc. Well, that's what the Russians are doing. They're solidifying a defensive line. The Ukrainians are going nowhere. They're banging their head against the Russian lines, slaughtering thousands more troops, losing more equipment. Meanwhile, the Russians are making sure that whatever happens in the future will happen from a firm base that is not going to be moved by Ukraine. The 150,000 troops that are finalizing their training These are offensive-oriented troops. We've seen, for all the people who say that Russia's running out of equipment, I just say watch the videos of the arrivals of hundreds of advanced T-90, T-80, and new model T-72 tanks, air defense systems, artillery systems, etc. This is the equipment that's coming to the front that's going to, that these 150,000 troops are going to fall in on, and then they're going to slaughter the Ukrainians. And that's going to happen sometime starting next month. I mean, this is what I've always said. It's going to take the Russians a period of time to train up. And I said, you'll start to see these troops arrive in numbers in December, and they'll complete their training sometime in January. And that's when the Russians will begin to do what they do. We see heavy fighting in a very critical city called Bakhmut. That's the Ukrainian name. I think Artemov is some variant of that. I butcher everything I try to say, is the Russian term. But the Russians are on the cusp of cutting the Gordian knot, which is what Bakhmut is when it comes to Ukrainian defenses. It's a defensive position, 8 years in the making, fortified with 7, 8, 9 defensive lines, reinforced concrete bunkers, fortified basements, etc. And the Russians are reducing it. And once they take Bakhmut and they roll up the Ukrainian defenses, there will be an opportunity for the Russians to do that which they have said is their number one priority, which is from their perspective, the liberation of the Donbass, of the totality of the territory that comprises the Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts, or people's republics. But it's not just the liberation of that territory, but push the Ukrainians back to a depth of over 100 kilometers so that they can never again fire artillery shells that land on the soil of the Donbass. This is the Russian objective. They're going to achieve it. And in doing so, they will probably be in a position to capture Kharkov, and they will be in a position to threaten Nikolaev. And the important thing about the threatening the city of Nikolaev is that opens the gateway to taking Odessa, should Russia want to do that. There's some talk about Russia maybe launching an offensive out of Belarus. I don't think it can be ignored, but two front wars are always more difficult to fight than one front wars. And I think the Russians achieve a lot more by having the potential to assault from Belarus than actually doing it. By having the potential, you still freeze in place significant Ukrainian forces that cannot be diverted elsewhere, while you eliminate the complexities, logistics, and operational complexities of trying to fight the Ukrainians on two fronts. I think the Russians are gearing up for a very, very successful winter campaign that'll roll into the spring, that'll result in dramatic alterations to the map on in terms of territorial acquisition, and will put the Russians in a place sometime by the end of spring to demand the unconditional surrender of Ukraine. And should Ukraine fail to bend the knee, so to speak, Russia will take Odessa, link up with Transnistria, and complete the physical destruction of the Ukrainian armed forces by the end of summer. So I think that's where we're headed right now.
Yeah. As far as like the actual conditions on the ground right now, I've heard that there's a lot of power outages. I've heard of people evacuating and so forth. How much do you know about that stuff?
What about the conditions of the Ukrainian civilians?
Correct.
Well, their electrical grid is collapsing as we speak. Upwards of 70% of it has been destroyed at any given time. Yes, the Ukrainians can make repairs to it, but these repairs are unable to catch up with the damage being inflicted. This damage will continue. I believe it's the goal of the Russians to completely eviscerate Ukraine as a modern nation state capable of sustaining meaningful societal functions. It's the death of a nation. It has, there's a couple purposes behind this. One, you prevent Ukraine from operating in a cohesive fashion. That's the command and control, etc. You limit logistics. The ability to transport equipment by train, by road, etc., is degraded severely. You limit communications, command and control, but maybe most importantly, you bring the war home to the Ukrainian people. There's no more parties going on in Ukraine. All through the summer, you go to Kiev, you go to Lvov. There's discos. There's dance halls filled with people out there doing their thing. Sorry for my dance moves; they're pretty ugly. But out there doing their thing, partying, drinking hardy, while there's boys on the front line getting slaughtered. That ain't happening anymore. The people of Ukraine are waking up to the fact that there's a war and that it's not going well. It's very hard to. It's one thing to come home sort of tipsy from a party, turn on the TV, and have a Ukrainian propagandist tell you how great things are going at the front line. You can believe that malarkey if you want to. It's another thing to be at home shivering, no lights, no generator, no nothing, and when you finally tune into something and hear how well it's going on the front line, you realize that's total crap. And it's not just that it's bringing the war home. It's demoralizing to the Ukrainian troops on the front lines. It's one thing for you to be in a trench freezing, getting blown up, etc. It's another thing to be in the trench freezing, knowing that back at home, your wife and kids are freezing, knowing that grandma doesn't have any food, knowing that life is hell. That's demoralizing for them. So there's this overall impact that the Russian strategic air campaign is having on Ukraine that further degrades their ability to provide anything remotely resembling continued cohesive resistance to Russia. Yes, the Ukrainians will keep fighting. Yes, in many cases they'll fight bravely. Yes, they will continue to inflict casualties on the Russians, but they're all going to die. That's just the fact of the matter. There's no way you're going to alter that outcome on the battlefield. Ukraine has lost, is losing, and will lose.
Wow. Well, that's why we have you on, Scott. I think we need to get a little bit of reality out there, and that's why we have you on the show. So, contrasting what you just said, Senator Lindsey Graham says that the Ukraine war will only end, Scott, if Putin is taken out. I don't even have words to really comment on that statement other than to think to myself, he's insane. These people who continue to say these things, they're basically saying, hey, we want regime change in Russia. I never thought, this isn't a small country. Isn't this like the biggest landmass of any country, Russia? And you have no plan when you supposedly topple Putin. What's the next step? What's the plan? And I don't see the United States and NATO teaming up to topple Vladimir Putin. I just don't see that as a reality. But this is the propaganda, it's in both political parties. There's a little bit of resistance within the Republican Party in pockets. We saw that the other night during the Zelensky fiasco, I'll call it. But what's your take on what Lindsey Graham had to say?
I'm trying to be nice here. My take probably wouldn't make it past internet censors. Yeah. Lindsey Graham is the despicable human being. The fact that the people of South Carolina continue to elect this horrific man to office is indicative of the quality of the people of South Carolina. And yes, I'm talking to anybody from South Carolina listening. If you voted for Lindsey Graham, you're as evil as he is. You're as worthless as he is. You're despicable. Go to hell. Go straight to hell. On the way to hell, reflect on this, please. Look around your beautiful South Carolina territory, because you are part of the United States, part of a beautiful country. See the sign you see. You may be a despicable human being, but the land deserves some respect. Reflect on the fact that Russia just activated 2 regiments of YARS road mobile missiles. These are advanced systems, each one of which carries multiple warheads. Some of these warheads are avant-garde hypersonic warheads. They will destroy the entirety of your state in this country. You want to take out Vladimir Putin? You think this is a good idea? Say goodbye to America, because that's what we're talking about. That's literally what we're talking about. How stupid can you be? Well, we've answered that question. You voted for Lindsey Graham, so we know you are pretty damn stupid. They're getting ready to activate the Satan II missile, a giant liquid missile with 15 nuclear warheads. That, hey, guess what, rocket scientists? You're not rocket scientists, because if you were, be smart enough not to vote for Lindsey Graham, but you did. So we know you're stupid. So let me make this simple for you. For all you idiots that think that we can build a missile defense system to shoot down Russian missiles, you do understand that our missile defense system is predicated on the Russians firing over the North Pole, right? Well, you didn't know that? You're dumber than freaking dirt. You don't know anything. But they don't have to fire this missile over the North Pole. See, the Sarmat has such ways from the south, from the other direction, and we ain't got no missile defenses there. There are 15 missiles from each missile, and they'll have several of them. So they'll inundate us with hundreds of missiles, each one of which will be from 150 to 300 kilotons, basically saying one missile in the middle of New York City makes it disappear. Hundreds of missiles fired, 15 nuclear warheads each one capable of putting that warhead within 10 meters of its intended target. So the United States will literally disappear in one fell swoop with no ability to defend. And you want to take out the Russian leader, knowing, again, you don't know anything. I'm sorry. I apologize. I make certain assumptions that you guys actually know something before you vote for a man who makes statements that puts the security of the United States at risk, knowing full well that if the United States were ever to carry out a decapitation strike targeting the Russian leader, that something called the dead hand, the perimeter system, would kick in. It's automatic, baby. You can't stop it. You think you're going to preemptively strike Russia? You're not. Let's say you do. You kill Putin. Wow. Yay. Perimeter fires all those missiles I just talked about. Automatically, you're going to die. How stupid can you be? And why do you want to target Putin? What do you know about Putin? I bet you most of them can't even spell his name right. And yet you're going to sit here and say, we got to get rid of Putin. We got to get rid. You don't know anything about Putin. You don't know anything about Russia. You don't know anything about the complexity of the relationship between nations. If you did, you'd understand that Russia does not pose a threat to the United States at all. Russia is not seeking to threaten the United States, challenge the United States globally, do anything other than survive as a sovereign nation, free of the kind of outside interference that we, the United States of America, have been imposing on them for decades. I mean, this just infuriates me. I'm not asking people to wrap themselves around your flag. No, you don't have to like people. You know, you can sit here and you can live in your little cocoon of prejudice, racism, whatever you want to call it, especially in South Carolina. All you white folk, I know what you are. You know, you're Lindsey Graham voters, so we know what you are.
Wow.
No, I'm just saying it straight up. If you want to challenge me in South Carolina, invite me down there. Let's do this.
Yeah.
Let's do this. You voted for Lindsey Graham. You suck collectively, all of you. If you know, I didn't vote for Lindsey Graham, then do a better job of getting an opponent to remove him from office.
Right.
Don't sit there and just accept the fact that you continually get beat by one of the most racist men in American history, Lindsey Graham. Okay, he's despicable as a human being. He's not that smart. I'm an Air Force lawyer. Well, God bless the Air Force. Do a better job of picking your officers and picking your lawyers. Lindsey Graham's a disgrace to the uniform of the United States Air Force. He's a disgrace to the United States of America. He's a disgrace to the oath of office he took. This is a man who wants to kill every American for what? What does Lindsey know about Russia? Not a damn thing. Lindsey Graham, let's do this anytime you want. Public debate anywhere. I'll go to South Carolina. I'll go to your backyard. Let's have this debate about Russia right now. I will crush you like the bug you are, because you know nothing. Because if you knew something, you wouldn't be saying what you're doing. You wouldn't be putting the lives of your fellow citizens at risk by trying to score cheap political points, because you know that the American public has been programmed through years of Russophobic media impulses to accept at face value any stupidity you usher about Russia. But if you put the facts on the table, educate them about Russia, they'll walk away and say, why are we doing this? The Russian people are not a threat to America. The Russian people don't want to harm America. I mean, the fact is, thanks to Lindsey Graham, the Russian people who at one time actually looked up to America. I mean, we used to be allies. People tend to forget that. You know, in the United States, because we have no real friends, everything is just a matter of convenience for America, we tend to forget the history of the Second World War. But to the Russians, to whom friendship actually means something, despite all that's going on today, they remember what happened in World War II. They remember Lend-Lease. They remembered the alliance. They speak kindly of Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They remember when we worked together to destroy the evil that was, Nazi Germany. They remember fondly. They don't rewrite history. They don't issue commemorative coins that only have the flags of Great Britain, France, and the United States when it comes to defeating Nazi Germany. We do. They remember everything. They respect history, but not America. We don't. We don't respect the world history. We don't respect our history. We don't respect anything. The ignorance of Lindsey Graham about Russia is stunning. They don't pose a threat, but Lindsey Graham's words are reflective of a reality that exists in the political elite of the United States. Again, a political elite that is not grounded on any academic insight about Russia and its leader, but rather about the ease in which the American domestic political system can be manipulated by exploiting fear and ignorance that creates the fear, and creating a boogeyman. We saw it with McCarthyism, and we're seeing it today. We keep talking about the Russian threat, 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 until you say it, and people go, yes, there is a Russian threat. There is no Russian threat, America. There is no Russian threat to the United States of America. Russia poses absolutely zero threat to our country unless we attack them. And what do you think the promulgation of regime change represents? Every time you have a politician like Lindsey Graham throw away that statement, let's get rid of Putin, tell our own president of the United States, that man got to go from office. Do you understand what this means? You're talking about, this isn't South Vietnam where we can go and assassinate the leader. This isn't Iraq that we can invade and then hang their leader by the neck until death. This isn't, Allende in Chile where the CIA can go and orchestrate a coup. This isn't Gaddafi whom we can betray at the last minute so he can have a bayonet shoved up his butt. No, this is Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia, a nation that has the capacity to destroy our nation 20 times over with nuclear weapons, a nation that has no territorial claims against the United States. Russia is not pushing for the dismemberment of the United States. Russia is not pushing to seize political control of the United States, but we are doing the exact same thing to them. Everything I just said that Russia's not doing to us, we are doing to Russia. We are an enemy of Russia. We are an enemy of Russia. We mean harm to the Russian people. We pass sanctions designed to bring harm to the Russian people, not to the Russian government, to the Russian people, so that they would rise up and overthrow the government. Where would be, I just remind everybody, this time, well, not this time, but a year and a half ago, 2021, the Russian bounties. You remember Russian bounties?
Yeah.
Well, the Russians are paying the Taliban to kill Americans. Well, it wasn't true. It wasn't true at all. Total fabrication. But we were incensed over the fact that that there's an allegation that Russia might be paying some money to Taliban to kill Americans who are, by the way, in Afghanistan without any legal authority. But that doesn't matter. But if the Russians wanted to kill 3, 4, 5 Americans, like, we should do something to Russia. Maybe go to war with Russia. Do something because they're evil, those Russians. All right. See how mad we got about the prospect of losing a half a dozen Americans to a Russian bounty? What would we do if Russia was actually promulgating a policy to collapse our economy so that Americans froze to death this morning? What would we do if our Russia was pursuing a policy designed to make hundreds of millions of Americans unemployed and unemployable because we wouldn't have any industry? What would we do if Russia did any of that? We would declare war on Russia. We would say, my God, the existential survival of America is at stake. We have to do something. And we'd probably be justified in doing that. Do you understand that is our policy towards Russia?
Yeah.
That we are literally at war with Russia. We are pursuing policies designed to destroy Russia, bring harm to Russia, bring down the Russian leader. And we act as if this is okay. It's not okay. Thank God there is a president like Vladimir Putin in Russia today who has the maturity and patience and forbearance not to overreact to the provocations of the United States. He's doing the smartest thing possible, which is ignoring us because we're so pathetic. All we have is words. All we have is Lindsey Graham and his pathetic, stupid, ignorant statements. Oh, we got some money. We got a printing press in the backyard. We hit print and we can print out however much money we want and we can ship that off to Ukraine, but it's having no impact. Hell, why not make it 450 billion, Biden, while you're at it? Make it $1 trillion. Jesus Christ, let's just go crazy. $5 trillion. Let's give Ukraine the totality of the American GDP. Let's just put it all over to Ukraine, and you're still not going to change the outcome. Russia is going to beat Ukraine. Why? Because Russia's on the right side of history. Every aspect of the Russian intervention is justified by history. They're doing the right thing. Every aspect of Ukraine's existence today is on the wrong side of history. They're not going to win. Print as much money as you want. Give them every tank in the American arsenal. I dare you, Joe Biden, to strip it bare. 2,000 M1 tanks, and there will be 2,000 destroyed M1 tanks on the battlefield. Give them every Patriot battery in America, put it on their soil, and they will all be destroyed. Ukraine cannot win because Ukraine is on the wrong side of history, and America's right there beside them. And so is Lindsey Graham, that despicable, yellow-bellied, cowardly, snively, whatever other term I could come up with, I'm allowed to say on the internet, pathetic excuse of American politician. And once again, I'll just remind the people of South Carolina, he's your problem. You made him. Get rid of him.
Yeah. Wow. Well, he's apparently got a twin brother by the name of Mitch McConnell. I don't know if you heard what he said the other day. I don't know if you're registered as a Republican, Scott. I don't know what your political affiliation is. I haven't asked you that question.
I am registered as a Republican, as a Ronald Reagan Republican, and I will maintain this registration to remind Republicans of what a real Republican looks like.
All right. Fair enough. I'm right now I'm registered as a libertarian, but I'm really losing faith in
everything.
in the Republican Party right now. This is what McConnell said. I'm sure you heard this statement. Providing assistance for Ukrainians to defeat the Russians is the number one priority for the United States right now, according to most Republicans, says Mitch McConnell. That's how we see the challenges confronting the country at the moment. Not jobs, not the economy, not inflation, not the housing market, which is starting to tank, not all of the things that you could see coming, that not one mention of the American people here, not zero, just most Republicans. I can't do the turtle voice as well as some other people, but most Republicans believe, this is what we're supposed to do. And I'm just like, you got to be kidding me, And what's sad, though, Scott, is when they take a vote, they get enough Republicans to just rubber stamp $45 billion. And, last time I had you on, I was talking a lot about the hurricane that rolled through here. And I had a chance to actually go down there last weekend. And I was in tears. Me and my wife, we drove down to Fort Myers Beach. And I've never, you can see this stuff, people take videos and, you saw, pictures on the news. But when you go down there and you see houses that they're imploded and they're just in rubble on the ground. And you see guys pushing shopping carts with stuff that's probably their stuff, probably the only stuff they have. And you see sand up where it shouldn't be. And, you see very little activity when it comes to, hey, where's FEMA? Where's whoever, There are a few charitable organizations that are still on the ground. But I don't know how much money it would take, Scott, to fix Sanibel, Fort Myers Beach, Cape Coral, all these affected communities in this area. But I'm betting it's probably less than $45 billion. That would be my guess, right? But yet the number one priority for Mitch McConnell is this endless war in Ukraine, and according to Lindsey Graham, it won't end until we get rid of Putin, which I mean, I don't have any words, like I said the first time around. But then you've got, Mitch McConnell, who's supposedly the leader in the Senate. I don't know why he should be the leader in the Senate, but they all just keep getting voted in there. McCarthy is another one. They just, hey, we'll just keep doing the same thing and hope for a different result. Last time I checked, I think that was the definition of insanity, right? So not only do you've got rhetoric, you've got stupid rhetoric from the guy in South Carolina, and the guy in Kentucky is saying, our number one priority is, Ukraine, of course, I mean, he's as senile and as stupid as the guy who's currently the president of the United States. And they're in, basically the uniparty, the way I look at it. Now, I'm glad to hear that you're a Reagan Republican. That at least I know, you've got some conservative credentials there. And I appreciate that. It's good to know that that's where you stand as far as your political views. But what do you think about just this insane spending? And I know you mentioned the printing press, and it just I don't understand that these politicians do not see the effect on the people like on Fort Myers Beach who are getting squat, really. And now that the thing went through and it's been gone for a couple of months, people just, I'm sure it happens every time a hurricane rolls through a community where, yeah, the media was down here for a couple months and we were, wow, these people sure are suffering. And then when that story isn't, salacious enough anymore, doesn't it's not getting the ratings, Scott, that it used to get, that, hey, we just moved the news crew somewhere else and we gossip about somebody and then, people tune into that. But man, is our government screwed up. It's so screwed up. And how do we fix this? I think you gave us a blueprint one of the times that you were on about what to do. And I know you can act locally, and as a libertarian, I kind of believe in obviously a lot less government, zero government if possible. I know there's some government that's needed, but man, it just seems like our priorities are very ass backwards. And I don't know how to deal with that sometimes. I can't process. It's like my brain just shuts down. I hear Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and I'm like, are you guys for real? Have you been, like you said earlier, have you been out there to kind of see what's actually going on? Have you been out in Kentucky? Have you been out in South Carolina? Have you been to Fort Myers Beach? I mean, that's an American problem, Scott. We used to come together as Americans and say, you know what? I get this thing going on in Ukraine, even if you think, hey, we should be over there, and that's a stupid thing, but okay. But in the meantime, I hear this talk a lot about America first. What is America first? Is it other countries first? Is it our number one priority? I don't know. What's your take on, I could just rant here, but you're the guy who is a guest on the show, and I want you to do the ranting and raving about Mitch McConnell.
I mean, let's never forget that Mitch McConnell is the guy that basically dismissed Rand Paul when he stood up in the Senate back in May, asking for the simple gesture of an inspector general to account for at that time the $40 billion that the U.S. Congress was getting ready to turn over to Ukraine through this new Lend-Lease program. And McConnell's like, no. And virtually every senator, a Republican senator, said no, except Rand Paul. And the Senate, there was no major fundamental change in the Senate. It's not like a new wave of Republican senators came in with fire in their belly. The risk comes from the House of Representatives, where there is some dissent brewing in the ranks about what we're doing in Ukraine. Let's put McConnell's statements in perspective here. Why is this the most important thing in America today? Well, first of all, because Mitch McConnell has no moral foundation, no intellectual foundation, except political power. He plays to the moment. And the moment right now is defined by Volodymyr Zelensky's visit to Washington. This isn't the equivalent. I know some people have tried to liken it to Winston Churchill's December 26th presentation, the United States Congress, in the speech that Churchill delivered to the Senate, which was in typical Churchillian fashion, a masterpiece of rhetoric.
Right.
Ukraine is alive and kicking is not a masterpiece of rhetoric. Volodymyr Zelensky will never be accused of being anything than what he is, which is an actor reading a script.
Right.
This is a man who was ushered to the front lines the other day. Whether or not he was in Bakhmut, near Bakhmut, somewhere, who knows where, he was awarding medals to the heroes of Bakhmut. And this is very important. You see, he has to award these medals because there's a script he has to follow. This is Mr. Smith Goes to Hollywood script.
Mm.
So he's awarding the medals, and he receives a flag autographed by all of the brave hero defenders of Bakhmut. Oh my God, tears rolling down your face, shivers. It's like the Alamo, Davy Crockett and Travis speaking to them, drawing the line in the sand, you brave defenders of democracy. And then he's put on an American airplane and flown to Washington, D.C. to do what? To meet with Joe Biden in the White House, where he can give Joe a medal for one of the heroes. Oh, Joe. And then he can go address the Congress, the joint session where, in addition to, kissing Nancy Pelosi in public, which is never a pleasant thing to watch, he hands them the hero flag, signed, draped there. Ignore the SS rune on the flag. Ignore the fact that one of the brave heroes is actually a Nazi. Most of them probably all Nazis.
Yeah.
Who put the SS rune on the flag that's draped, because Congress has already debased itself. They already brought the Azov fighters into Congress, praised as heroes, etc. But Zelensky gave his speech, and the whole purpose of this is to create the theater of the absurd, so that no voices of dissent can rise up and say, hey, why are you pushing through a $45 billion plan in a lame duck session? Shouldn't the will of the people play out here? Didn't we just have an election? What is the rush right now? It's December, it's almost Christmas. Why don't we hold on to this money and let the next Congress vote for it, so the will of the people can be manifested? And, maybe Marjorie Taylor Greene will get up and ask some very poignant questions that'll confuse people and upset people and get them to say, my God, what are we doing? No, you can't have that. We got to rush this through a lame duck session. And so you bring in your little puppet, Zelensky, who does puppet things. Nancy Pelosi called his speech the greatest speech ever delivered to Congress. I will make the following promise. Beyond what I just said, Ukraine is alive and kicking. No one will remember a single word. Now you can I got to be careful what I say, because if you say that's a word that was in the speech, so I can't say that. No one will be able to put together a string of 5 or more words from that speech that is memorable or notable. This speech is already forgotten. The speech didn't exist. It didn't happen. The meeting with Biden didn't happen. None of it mattered because it was all theater. It was just ridiculous. Mitch McConnell's statement, and this is what I'm trying to get at, he doesn't believe what he's saying. Mitch McConnell, like the absurd, pathetic American politician that he is, had his string pulled where he made, which is facially an absurd statement, because Ukraine is not the most important issue for America today. What happened in Florida, repairing Florida, is the most important issue. Homeless is the most important issue. Unemployment is the most important issue. Student loans. We can go on and on and on about things that are more important than Ukraine. Far more important, especially from the perspective of an American politician who is ostensibly supposed to be the servant of the American people. So Mitch McConnell made a statement. I will also guarantee you this. Sometime in January, February, March, Mitch McConnell is going to make a statement to the American people in his position as the minority leader in the Senate, that X is the most important issue facing the American people today, and X ain't going to be Ukraine. Because Mitch McConnell has no moral or intellectual foundation.
Yeah.
He is a politician, pure and simple. He says stupid things to pass stupid legislation, to confuse stupid people, and that's the only way I can characterize the American people today. Collectively stupid. I know there's individuals out there who mean well. Heck, I was just in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and I met a bunch of them. Really good citizens. You're a good citizen. There's other good citizens out there. But you know what? The goodness that you exude, unfortunately, it's dissipated in the collective seething ocean of ignorance that is the people of the United States of America. We keep electing the same idiots to office. They keep saying the same stupid things, and we keep nodding our heads saying, yes, we want more of this, more of this, more of this. Again, just basic geographical challenge to the average American out right now. Don't Google it. Just on the map behind me, I'm behind David there. Point out Ukraine on the map,
Yeah.
please. Before you authorize $45 billion, point Ukraine out on the map. At
Yeah.
least do that.
Yeah.
And then we can just make it even more difficult. Show me where Crimea is, because
Yeah.
you're willing to die for this. Remember, Lindsey Graham is asking you to die, because by saying we want to get rid of Vladimir Putin, he's asking you to give up your life for this. So at least point before the nuclear blast explodes and vaporizes you, your last gesture should be to take your finger and pathetically point where Crimea is on the map, so you at least know what you're dying for. Because, right, isn't this what's all about? The liberation of Crimea?
Yeah.
To return Crimea to its lawful owners, the Ukrainian people, who are the most noble people in spirit. Hell, why don't we just pull down the American flag, raise that autographed Ukrainian flag, and acknowledge that we're nothing more than, the Bank of Ukraine? That's all the American people exist for. Please go to work, bring home your salary, let the government take it, so that we can continue to fund our Lord and Master, Zelensky. God, he's the most important person in the world today. I'm surprised we don't just replace Joe Biden with Zelensky. Let Zelensky sit in the White House. He might do a better job. The same thing with Nancy Pelosi. I mean, as bad as Zelensky is as a speaker, remember, he's operating off a script he didn't write, but at least his speechwriters have more intelligence and cohesive messaging than anything Nancy Pelosi has delivered in the last decade of her life. So why don't we just be honest? I've always chastised Europeans when I visit there, and I speak to the parliamentary body. And the last thing I tell them is, please take down your flag, put up the American flag, because you're nothing more than a pathetic colony of the United States of America. But it's time we acknowledge what we are. Yeah. Apparently, we're nothing more than a colony of Ukraine, because Ukraine is able to send their pathetic little comedian leader over here and then, magically print $45 billion and get it without. Have the governor of Florida come up and try and get a meeting at the White House.
Yeah.
Maybe you can hand him a challenge coin from the Fort Myers Fire Department. Yeah. Hey, Mr. President, here's a challenge coin from a fire department. It doesn't exist anymore because their buildings are gone, the fire trucks are gone. There's no city to defend. But would you please ask Congress to print $45 billion for the people of Florida? Yeah. And then maybe Santos could have a joint speech before the joint session of Congress, where he could give the Floridian flag. He could have some first responders sign it. I bet you none of them put SS runes on it either. And then they can drop the flag over. Everybody stands up and gives them a standing ovation as they rubber stamp $45 billion in American taxpayer funds to be sent to Florida. At least you'll be helping Americans. Right. But no, Zelensky comes and in the space of one day gets $45 billion like that. No questions asked. No questions asked.
Yeah.
Is this what America's become? I think so. We are a colony of Ukraine. Slava Ukraina. That's my new thing. No more God bless America. I'm a pure Slava Ukraina guy, because at least I'm being honest. I'm being honest that we are serving this neo-Nazi regime in Ukraine. When the leader of a neo-Nazi regime can come to the United States, meet the president of the United States, hand them a fake medal, have a joint session of Congress, hand them a fake flag with SS autographs on it, and then walk away with $45 billion. Man, there's something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man, you just nailed that. Yeah, I heard someone on Tucker Carlson, he had a guest on, say, hey, at least now, finally Congress has found a flag that they can endorse and get behind, And so I don't know, that was a real.
Yeah, I bet you they passed a law that says you can't burn the Ukrainian flag. I bet you Congress right now would pass a law. You can't burn the American flag. Or no, the Ukrainian flag.
Ukrainian flag, yeah. I mean,
I bet you they'll also say, because of its autographs, they'll say this is the living embodiment of the nation. It's a living symbol. Yeah. The other day I was talking to somebody, and I said, you have read the flag law, right? You know what the law of the United States says about the flag. Whether you agree with it or disagree, it doesn't matter. The law is the law. Yeah. It is the living embodiment of the nation. It is the living symbol of our nation.
Right.
A living symbol. Mm-hmm. It is alive. Now, I know people are going to sit there and go, no, Scott, it's a piece of cloth. I know. But it is a living symbol according to the law. Right. And yet, the Supreme Court says that we can burn that because that's free speech. Right. Okay. I'm not here to get in a fist fight over the flag. I would like to, but the Supreme Court tells me I can't because I have to tolerate free speech, and I believe in free speech. So you want to burn the flag, burn the flag. I'm not happy about it. That's your business.
Yeah.
But now, with all the disrespect we show the American flag,
Mm-hmm.
our own flag, we now have this Ukrainian flag that apparently, I guess we kneel before it. Is that what we do now?
Yeah.
We kneel and then we crawl. We're not allowed to raise our eyes to it lest they be burned out by the sight of this glorious blue and yellow sky and the golden fields of Ukraine with the autographs of the Nazi defenders of Bakhmut who put the SS rune on their flag. But we have to ignore that. That's, oh my gosh, what have we come to this country?
Yeah.
What have we come to? I mean, no, no, no. No, it can't be this way. This is the kind of stuff that in the old days you would actually you look out in the street and the entire neighborhood would be out with pitchforks and shovels, and we'd be marching, with torches in hand to burn down the people that were disgracing the nation this way. No, but we're all at home right now trying to figure out how we're going to squeeze in that last hour of shopping time at the mall to get that last present. Again, I love Christmas. Time of giving. I'm not, but man, if your focus is that, you're missing the bigger picture.
Yeah.
We just had the Congress of the United States embarrass all of us,
Right.
disgrace all of us by allowing this puppet in there to deliver that speech. And it wasn't even an honest effort. They knew they were going to vote for the 45 billion.
Yep.
This was pure theater to suppress those brave few in Congress who were going to speak out against it.
Right.
That's all this was.
Yeah.
Pure theater.
Yeah.
Zelensky came in, read his script, and left.
Yeah.
He does deserve. You know what, Sean Penn? Thank you, man. You had the foresight to see that Zelensky is an actor worthy of. It was an Oscar-level performance that he put on there. And Sean Penn recognized that potential. So, Sean, here's to you, man, for recognizing that Zelensky deserved that Oscar more than you ever did.
Yeah. It's really sad, and I think Sean Penn was on with Sean Hannity of all people not too long ago. Basically the two of them who disagree supposedly about politics, right? And they're all having the kumbaya moment. Hey, we really have to work on taking out. I guess the objective is to take out Putin. I don't know if Hannity has said it, but obviously they're all still living in this. Scott, is it like the Cold War mentality that they're all living in? I think it's the Soviet
never
Union.
Once in the Cold War. Never once in the Cold War. Never. I'll say it again. You never heard an American leader say, we need to take out Khrushchev.
Yeah.
We need to take out Brezhnev. We need to take out Andropov. We need to take out Chernyenko. We need to take out Gorbachev. No one ever said that. Yeah. Why? Because the consequences were known.
Right.
And here's the other thing. For all you conspiracy theorists out there who wonder who killed JFK, somebody did.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody took out an American president. And let me just give you some quick thing.
Oh.
You start taking out foreign leaders, I can guarantee you the eventual outcome will be they will take out our leaders.
Yeah.
Our leaders are the most vulnerable people in the world. And, I wouldn't want to be a Secret Service agent today, especially given the fact that you have Lindsey Graham and Mitch McConnell and Sean Hannity talking about taking out Vladimir Putin. Again, thank God Vladimir Putin is the only adult in the room. I mean, as the adult, he sits there in this kindergarten gone crazy, watching kids pull hair, spit, puke, poop, whatever else they do in there. And he's like, okay, kids will be kids. I'm going to clean up the mess. Okay, everybody nap time. Thank God Putin's that guy. Yeah. Because if he wasn't that guy, he'd have justification to do a whole bunch of things. Again, please, Americans, put yourself in Vladimir Putin's place. Pretend for a moment that Putin is Biden and he's listening to all this crap coming out of Russia.
Yeah.
Do you sit there and do nothing?
Right.
Well, I mean, imagine being, Anatoly Antonov, the Russian ambassador to the United States right now, sitting in Washington, D.C., and just listening to all this.
Right.
You're supposed to be the ambassador. You're supposed to be working on good relations. And you're sitting in Washington, D.C. and just looking at this seething mass of ignorant based hatred, um, and realizing I've got nothing to do because these people don't want peace. These people don't want to even begin the process of maybe not being friends, although that would be nice, yeah, but at least having normalized relations, peaceful coexistence, something. But instead, it's a seething, massive, ignorance-fueled hatred. I mean, I can't say I feel sorry for the guy, but I feel for him.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you like to be the ambassador to a nation that hates you and hates your country, and there's no justification for it?
Right.
You want to sit there and say, hey, why don't you all come over to the ambassador's residence, and now on the large screen TV, I'll play Swan Lake, and we can all sit here, and then we'll follow it up with the Nutcracker Suite, Tchaikovsky. Let's celebrate culture, only to be told we don't do Tchaikovsky. He's a Russian.
Yeah,
that's evil. No, Tchaikovsky's beautiful. You guys used to listen to it all the time. There's movies made about the Nutcracker Suite. There was a film made about about the Swans Lake and all this stuff. You guys used to love this kind of stuff, but now we don't because we're stupid, ignorant people. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be in a good mood going into the holidays.
No, this is why we have you on, Scott. We don't you can tune in to regular media and get the cheerleading all day long. I mean, that's why I mentioned, Hannity and Sean Penn. And I remember seeing a clip from that. I'm going, Sean Penn and Sean Hannity. Okay. How does that even make sense? And this to me kind of shows where this neocon Republican Party, where it's going still, even when the guy that they mostly endorsed, right, Donald Trump, said, wouldn't it be good to get along? Remember when he said it was good to be like getting along with Vladimir Putin? Now, I don't know if Trump really took any steps to make it, like we were, cozying up to Russia or anything like that, but that wasn't the point. He just made a statement. It's kind of like the Congress people, like you mentioned, Marjorie Taylor Greene, who and Matt Gaetz, I think a couple of them during that speech, I think those were the only two people that sat during the speech. And the commentators came out of the woodwork. What are they like Putin? Why wouldn't they just stand? I mean, we're all supposed to be SEALs and just clap and it's amazing that nobody is capable of doing independent thought. And if they do independent thought, right, then they're chastised. Then they're made into like these Putin puppets or whatever the meme of the day is. And I'm just flabbergasted. Look, I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on pretty much a lot of, like 95% of what he talks about. But back in the old Bernie days, Bernie used to say things like, hey, maybe we should kind of negotiate. We should. And now, I guess he came out and he wanted to say something with regards to sending the money, and he just got shot down by the White House. Like, no, sorry, Bernie, you got to play along. It's just really pathetic now that there is no dissent for the most part. And when you find a couple of people that do, they're ostracized. Hey, just come along with the Borg. We're all going to the same place. This is where we all have to stand together, sending $45 billion and worshiping at the new Churchillian, speech or whatever. And Zelensky is Churchill, and people aren't scratching their head going, yeah, I don't think he's Winston Churchill. I remember reading about Winston. I mean, just that's the problem though, Scott. No, you're a man of history and military strategy, and kind of where all the bodies are buried, figuratively and probably literally in some cases. But a lot of Americans today, it's a diet of media junk food 24/7. And you don't even have to be that smart to kind of figure out, hey, everybody's kind of saying the same thing. We need a little dissent. Hey, Mitch McConnell, I don't think that's the number one priority of most Republicans. Did you take a poll or did you just make this up? And this is what's going on day after day. what do you call it, gaslighting or whatever the phrase is, and people just stand there and, like you said, time to go to the mall again. They're
Putin,
doing a
Putin,
sale. We got to
Putin's
get
bad.
there. You know,
Putin's bad.
Putin's
Putin's
bad.
bad.
Yeah.
I mean, my standard. It's a standard offer to anybody. Anybody. I will debate you anytime, any place. And the framing of the debate is as follows. You get to pick 3 reasons why Vladimir Putin's a bad man. And you have to back up each of the reasons with 5 statements of fact. And then I will crush you. I will eat your lunch. I will destroy you. I will humiliate you. You will fall off the stage dead from what I will do to you because you can't do it. Can't do it. Can't do it.
Scott Ritter.
It's a standard offer.
Yeah.
Standing offer. Anybody.
It's
and
just,
if I shouldn't say this, but what the hell, I'm going to do it anyways. If you guys don't think you have the intellectual capacity to deal with me, we can do this in a boxing ring. All right. You want to kick my ass? I'm here. But while we're boxing, we're going to be mic'd up. As I'm smacking the living crap out of you, I'm going to make every point I'm going to make about Vladimir Putin and why you're stupid and why you're wrong. And while you're spitting out your teeth and spitting out the blood, knocking out the snot, maybe you'll realize you made a mistake. I mean, it's time to you don't want to get violent. And I'm going to get in trouble. My wife's going to watch it. What are you doing? Okay, I apologize. I don't want to fight anybody. I'm a man of peace. But it gets you furious. It gets me just literally livid because, this is life and death stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, $45 billion. Do you not understand what's going to happen to this money? Let me tell you. First of all, it's not all going over there at once.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be the reason why they're jamming this in now is so they don't have to have additional appropriations bills down the road where some of these Republicans might ask some very inconvenient questions. So this money is supposed to get you through most of 2023. As I said going in, Russia's winning this war in 2023. Triple the money, quadruple the money, whatever you want to do. Just let the printing press go nonstop. Why don't we just have an airlift of money? We'll fly over Kiev, kick over the door, pop out a pallet full of money, and we'll just airlift money into Kiev nonstop. It's not going to change the outcome. All that's going to happen is that you're going to prolong the inevitable, the suffering of the Ukrainian nation you claim to support. They are dying. The Ukrainian nation is dying. The Ukrainian people are dying. They're going to die in horrific numbers in the coming year, and there's nothing that can be done to save them. Unfortunately, 250,000, 500,000 people who are currently alive today won't be alive by the end of the summer. And it's all because of you, the people who support the people who hit the printing press, who put out $45 billion. It's not going to change anything. The Patriot missile, have you read the history?
No, not a great weapon system, right?
No, it's a horrible weapon system. It doesn't work unless you're in a laboratory type environment where everything's perfect. It's a very complicated system. And it's one that, frankly speaking, has never operated in an openly hostile environment where people are actively trying to kill it. It is so easy to kill. It is a predictable system. It has a radar that has to be cueing almost continuously to guide the missile in. And when you cue a radar, when you activate a radar, it emanates a signal.
Yeah.
That signal is unique. It can be detected by a nation that has spent the last 30 years training to fight the Patriot missile. If you think the Russians have been sitting there going, Patriot, don't worry about that. We're never going to fight the Americans. I think the Russians have been saying, we may have to fight that thing one time. Let's study it, study it, study it. And the beauty of studying any American system is that, we deploy them all over the world. All over the world. And you don't think the Russians have little tactical intelligence teams that sit off outside of a Patriot base, just sucking in all the signals. What's that radar say? What frequency? Oh, they're getting ready to fire. What happens there? What command and control goes on? Boom, boom, boom. How can we jam that? What happens if we, while that missile's coming in, if we come in with some electronic warfare aircraft and we cue on this frequency, do we confuse this? Oh, we do confuse the signal. You mean they can't guide on the missile at that point in time? Or can we get them to fire all their missiles in a false targeting thing? Make them think they're under attack, but they're not. And they're going to shoot every one of their 700,000 missiles. What can we do? You don't think the Russians have been doing that? I can guarantee you they've been doing that. There's a bunch of guys that have been waiting all their lives to fight the Patriot system. And now Joe Biden's given them the biggest gift ever. They're going to get to kill it in combat in Ukraine, along with the Ukrainian soldiers that we're going to train up to operate this system. It's going to have no impact on the battlefield, none whatsoever. And yet we're giving it to them.
Hey, Scott, this is good for Raytheon, though, brother. Come on. I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, and this is all when the skeptics come along and I say stuff like, hey, it's really good for Raytheon. It's really good. Why do we have a war-based economy? I don't want to keep talking about this forever because I know you got to run today, but it's just bizarre that we really do have like this war-based economy where the military contractors, if you live in a state, and this might be some of the mentality with Lindsey Graham. If you're going to, I guess, try to think that there might be some logic to this. Everybody in like Massachusetts, for instance, oh yeah, we're liberal Democrats, but we really love Raytheon. And yeah, that's why we continue to vote for war, because pretty much in every state, there's a military base, there's a military contractor, and we're just and we're spread out all over the globe, Scott. I mean, it's just about money at this point? Patriot, you just said Patriots kind of suck, right? They don't really work. And if they do work, they have to be in a controlled environment. And then the enemy can kind of figure out how to mess up the tracking and everything. And so what's the point other than to line the pockets of people over at Raytheon again?
Look, this is a gross oversimplification. And I'm just saying that in advance because I know I'm going to get the comments. Well, Scott, you missed this, you missed that, you missed it. Yes, I did. I'm sorry. What I'm about to say is a gross oversimplification, but it's true. World War II saved the United States of America's economy. We were deep in a recession, showing the inherent flaws of capitalism. And World War II came along, and our dictator president, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, was able to create a war economy that helped us become the arsenal of democracy. And have employment and all this stuff. And we didn't pay the price in the war that other nations paid. So we emerged from that. But what we realized is that if we ceded back to our pre-war status, the inherent failures of the capitalist model, we're going to resurrect, and we would collapse once again into Great Depression, because the American model of capitalism sucks.
Yeah,
literally sucks. It's about making rich very rich and making everybody else very poor.
Yeah,
we can fake out the system by having an artificial economy that generates jobs and income, makes the rich richer, but makes the poor a little less poor. We can do that, but we need something that confuses the American people, because normally it makes no sense to spend money on things. You're supposed to be peace loving. You're supposed to be perpetual war. And so what we did is we after World War II, we maintained our global presence, and we created the Cold War. We manufactured the Cold War, by the way.
Right.
The Soviet Union was not in search of enemies. We were. And then we have to build an economy, a military industrial enterprise that keeps us going. That's what Dwight Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell address. He warned us about this. And he also warned about the linkage with Congress, because now this economy is about money. Congress controls the money. It becomes a source of political power. And so you take this defense industry and you do the worst thing in the world when it comes to efficiency of operation. You break it up into small pieces and you spread it around the country so that everybody has their hand in the pie. And that's what America is today. We are a nation of capitalists who make their money off the instruments of war that require warlike policies to justify their existence. And whoop, there you got America. We are in perpetual war. America is at its weakest when there's peace.
Yeah.
I hate to say that.
Wow.
But America is at its weakest when there's peace, because we no longer stand for anything. Peace is the poison of the American system. we must have conflict. We must have war in order for us to fulfill our, the promise of the system. Once you unplug from this 800 and what 80, 90, I don't know, $1 billion defense budget, which we don't even know where it goes. The Defense Department did an audit, and once again, they say, there's trillions of dollars out there. We have no clue where it is.
Yep.
Really? Well, I think there's members of Congress who know where that money went. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not accusing anybody of corruption, but I am accusing them all of corruption. Take a look at the bank account of your average, person, freshman congressman seeking office. Look at that bank account, and then if they stay in Congress for 5 terms, look at their bank account going out.
Yeah.
Tell me there ain't corruption in America. Tell me that we're not the most corrupt political system in the world. Look at Nancy Pelosi and the money she has. Look at Mitch McConnell and the money he has. Look at Joe Biden and the money he has. Mm-hmm. Really? I didn't know being a civil servant paid so well.
Yeah. Well, on that note, Scott, we'll wrap things up. So what are you doing for Christmas? Just going to lay low and enjoy a little peace and, goodwill on earth and all that?
I am actually. I'm going to be home for Christmas Day with my wife and my kids and their fiancés. And then on the 26th, I'm flying out to California, and I'll be with my parents. They're both in their late 80s. So it's important to go out there and see them. My sister will come out. We'll have a nice holiday. And then on New Year's Eve, I'll fly home. So because New Year's Eve is one of the big holidays from the former Soviet Union. That's the big event. Yeah. So it's important that I be home. It's midnight, and we have the big table, and we bring in the new year right. So, nice. But during that week, I will be incognito, or not doing any interviews during that week. I'm taking the week off.
I got you. Well, I'll be a real cliche here and say, well, I'll probably see you next year then, Scott, and stay safe.
See you next year.
Yeah. And thanks again for being here. Tremendous insight as always. And folks, again, figured I'd give Scott another plug for his book here, Disarmament in the Time of Perestroika, Arms Control, the End of the Soviet Union. Some lessons that we could learn right now if we actually chose to do so. Scott Ritter, again, thank you, and have a safe holiday.
Thanks, you too.